Hello. So, my question that I've been asking myself lately is how do I retain oral influence that is not colloquial? So, what I mean by that is um, language, oral language, so different languages that you speak, are they are influence versus information. And what I mean by that is that they are fashion instead of form. They're tongues that you put on basically. Anyway, the question, how do I retain oral influence that is not colloquial, is I'm asking that question because I'm trying to figure out how to break free from the conditioning factors of the colloquial environment, um, of the familiar, and I'm trying to break free from that so that I can know all the languages, you know. And I think it's something to aim for. Anyway, so I have come up with a table to help me figure out the answer to this question. So the attributes are that I will be employing are Y, X, A, B, 1, 2. So Y stands for positive, which is for position. X stands for negative, which is for negation. A stands for orderly and or dominant. B stands for chaotic and or submissive. 1 stands for insecure. 2 stands for inadequate. Um, Note the colors of the aforementioned Y, X, A, B, 1 and 2 signify a corresponding value of the language in connection to the attributes listed above. So, if you see one of the attributes in a particular color, it is that color because a value is attached to that attribute. So the color red, that stands for ethically, so for the benefit of livelihood. The color blue stands for morally, so for the benefit of survival. Yellow stands for cowardly, so because of external motivation. Green stands for potentially, so can become insert attribute. Purple stands for ephemerally, so the insert attribute is lasting for a short term. Orange stands for courageously, so because of internal motivation. Gray stands for continually, so the insert attribute is lasting for a long term. Note, a full attribution of YA2 signifies in the assigned respect the respect is masculine, whereas a full attribution of XB1 signifies the respect is feminine. Any full attributions indifferent to the two aforementioned are heterogeneous in respect, meaning they are diversely masculine, and feminine, meaning they're not typically masculine or feminine. And so now we move on to the table of tongues, where I've named the table of tongues. Anyway, the factors, 1, you got sound. 2, symbol. 3, symptom. 4, prophecy. 5, reflection. And 6, currency. So let me explain the factors first off that are going to help me answer this question that I've had on my mind. So sound. Sound is very important where it concerns oral language. So, for example, I've got some languages listed down the side here of the table. and you'll notice that French, Russian, Italian, and Japanese, they are all assigned a Y. Now the Y, as I explained earlier, that stands for positive, which means position. So think about it like this, okay? The sound of a language, if it has position, it's going to be distinct. You're going to be able to intuit a region is in a position to that oral language. So, you know, if you hear the word mademoiselle, you know, you just, at least this is for me, I just immediately intuit, oh, that's got position, that's French, it's position, right? It immediately tells me where it's from in a way that, you know, if I were to not know English, or you would ask somebody who doesn't know English, if you were to say, not ask them, but if you were to say, hello, there's no place, there's no geographical pinpoint, you know, that is contained enough, collected enough to be able to assign position to that word, to that particular word of that oral language. So English is not, English is assigned an X, so it's assigned negation, because sound-wise, it doesn't carry an accent like French does, like Russian does, like Italian does, like Japanese does. It doesn't carry an accent that is localized. You know, you can't pinpoint the accent, is what I'm saying. And so the reason why sound is a factor to help me answer this question that I've had in my mind is because I think it's very important when you're trying to figure out languages, that you notice that some languages do have that pinpoint of locality, you know, that is within the oral language, that some of them have that, and that others don't. So Spanish doesn't, Hindi doesn't, and it could be said that that English, Spanish, Hindi, they don't have this due to these oral languages having surpassed the point of empire, or the border of empire, if we, you know, might imagine it so. You know, basically, if we think of a language, a particular language, like a mass that's growing, so it's growing and expanding, and then we think of an empire as being a certain size of that of mass, and then we think of expanding past the empire mass stage, and that's really what's happened with English. That's what's happened with Spanish and Hindi, is that they've expanded past that empire stage of mass development, and so they lose that pinpoint of locality anyway. So that's why sound is a factor. Symbol is a factor. Now, a symbol is, you might think, why is that? Why are you having symbol as a factor, you know, in figuring out oral language issues? Well, a symbol is an image, like a glyph, in one sense, if pictorially speaking. But if we generalize the word symbol, its definition, past the pictorial and into the domain of oral language, then what we begin to see is that you can have oral language, certain words that are, symbolic, that they allude to things that have no definitive meaning. And so that's why symbol is a factor. It has no definitive, connected, like sinewy meaning to it, if you follow what I'm saying. And so so that's why that's a factor. And a similar thing with symptom. A symptom is not, it sounds like symbol, but it's not the same thing. A symptom is basically, in the context of oral language, it is a word that has a definitive, connected meaning. There is a sinewy meaning to it. It is connected to other things. And there's sort of it's like a cluster point, a point in a cluster. So if you grab a cluster of something, it's one point in that cluster. That's what a symptom is. It's a diagnostic tool. You check the symptom, the symptom, and this other symptom, and then you can diagnose somebody. But this is, how it's used in this context is simply looking at words in a language that are symptomatic of a whole understanding of the language, or of a whole of a group, not really group, but like of a part of the language. Because language is, as I said before, it's fashion. Oral language is fashion. So, fashions use different colors. If we're thinking of fashion in terms of clothing, there's different colors, different materials, fabrics, and all that. If we think of in terms of oral language, there's also different, there are different elements at play. And so a symptom is basically, in this context, it's a point of a cluster of an element that is in use in the language. Okay, now for prophecy. Prophecy in this context, that is that has to do with the motivation factor of a language, right? Well, one of the motivation factors of a language. Okay, so what is said in the language, for the point of signaling something down the line. What is spoken in the language for the point of prophecy, basically. That's why that's there. And because one of the reasons you need to speak is so that you can point things out, so that you can say, stop, iceberg up ahead, you know what I'm saying? And so there are parts of every oral language that are concerned with prophecy, and so that's why that's a factor. Reflection, this is also a factor. So mourning, grief, there's oral language that exists for the sole purpose of allowing that operation to occur, that operation of mourning, of grieving, of departing, right? If we think about prophecy as looking toward a start point of something, some kind or other, reflection is looking back at a start point, if you know what I'm saying. And so that's why reflection is there, because there are words in every oral language that have a reflective quality, that are, their whole purpose is to hold an understanding, or the makeup of a comprehension for the past of the oral language. And then, okay, 6, currency. So if we think about the word currency, we can easily see the root word being current, as in a stream. It's like a river. It's like a stream flowing, the ebb and flow of water. But in the context of oral language, currency here is, it refers to how fluid, so how fashionable is the language. So English, I've put YA1. And the reason for that is, I think that the English language is positive, so it has position as it is a current, right? It's a steady stream, so to speak. It's also orderly, so that's why there's an A. It's orderly and dominant, so it's like a mainline steady stream. And one, it's one, as you can see, one is in green, so it's potentially insecure. So what I mean by that is, if you look at the English language, you know, it always has to be perpetuated in a way that is rather bold and in your face. If you look at, you see the Americanization of the English language, the English oral language. It always has to be up front, out there, and so there's potential insecurity, but it's basically a main steady stream. It's currency. The oral language of English it's a main steady stream, which is why it's so domineering. Anyway, so those were the factors. Those were the 6 factors that hopefully, once I figure this all out, can help me answer my question. My question of how do I retain oral influence that is not colloquial? Now you'll see that when you look at the table of tongues, you'll see that there's a lot of NAs boxed, and what that means is non-available, not available, I should say. And so I need to do a lot more research, because I really have to dig my hooves in, so to speak, and I really need to, break through to some oil, so to speak, to sort of see if I can answer this question. But it's an interesting question, and yeah, so this is what I've been, one of the things I've been working on, figuring out this question. Have a good day. Peace. Meow.